for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute's Oral History Project. I'm Dr. Horace Huntley. We're at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Today is January 8th, 1997. Reverend Provitt, I want to thank you for taking time. Out of your busy schedule. And we know a bad day like today, it takes a real man to come out.
Well, I am delighted, to come and be interviewed. And anything that I have experienced during this civil rights struggle here in Birmingham, I'm delighted to share it.
Yes, sir. Okay. Just want to start by asking you about your family. Where are your mother and father from?
Well, my mother was born in Montgomery County, a little place, one right in Lake Pine, Alabama.
Lake Pine.
Yeah, but I guess they would call that little.
Is that near Hope Hall?
It's I would say that it's kind of southeast from Hope Hall.
Mm-hmm.
No. It's before you get to Hope Hall. Right. Hope Hall is beyond Montgomery, but this is a little further down.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You know where Spring Junction, Cell Station, going down Highway 331?
No, sir, no.
Well, that's on that main highway going south out of Montgomery.
Out of Montgomery.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Your father from the same area?
My father was born in Crenshaw County.
Crenshaw County. Okay. And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
There were 6 of us brothers and 4 girls. One of them died. 6
boys and 4 girls?
Yes.
Okay. And where did you fit in that? How you were the...
I'm the oldest boy.
Oldest boy.
There are 3 girls that's older than me.
Mm-hmm. So you were the 4th child?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of education did your parents have?
Well, my parents, they didn't have much of an education. They were most country people.
Yeah. And were they farmers?
Yes. My daddy was a farmer. My mother was just a housewife.
Okay. Did they own their own land?
Yes.
Do you know how much land they owned?
Well, we owned about 120 some odd acres of land.
Mm-hmm. Is that land still in the family?
Still in the family.
Is that right? Okay. Did your parents remain in that part of the state, or did they ever move to Birmingham?
Well, my father died before my mother did. And after he died, she moved to Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
But he was living in the country when he died.
Right.
At the old home seat.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember when he died? Were you old enough?
I believe it was, he died after he was 75. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh.
I was here.
Oh, I see. Well, tell me, what was it like? Did you grow up in that particular area of the state, in Crenshaw County?
Yeah, when I was a youngster, I grew up in Crenshaw County. And shortly after that, I moved to Montgomery, Alabama. Mm-hmm. I made that my adopted home.
Okay. Was most of your childhood or all of your childhood spent in Crenshaw County?
Yes. My childhood, yes.
What do you remember?
I was a very young man when I came to Montgomery.
Do you remember when you first started to school in Crenshaw County? Your early days in elementary school.
Let me see. It must have been. If my memory serves me correctly, I didn't spend too many years there. Mm-hmm. It must have been. It must have been in the latter part of the teen, before I left from down there.
Right. What do you remember about that childhood that you spent in Crenshaw County? What was it like growing up in Crenshaw?
Well, when I was a little youngster, my daddy was a farmer, and I applied on you, and we worked in the farm now, and we never did, I guess, feel the pinch of hunger and poverty like I did see some people.
Mm-hmm.
My dad always made a good living for us.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a whole lot of money, but he always made a good living for us.
Did you see other people that were worse off than you were?
Man, I saw some horrible conditions. Children so poor they couldn't even get into Christmas.
Mm.
Santa Claus didn't even come to them.
Were your family then considered to be pretty well off?
Yeah.
In comparison to your neighbors, the people around?
I guess my family, they probably were at, I'd say at maybe the first level of middle class.
Mm-hmm.
They were not in the upper
Right.
class.
Right. So how did the farming affect your schooling?
Well, I didn't, I had to stop out of school really before school closed to help my daddy.
Mm-hmm.
We was all very small, a big family of us, and we didn't get to go to school as much as white people did.
But you did
Yeah,
get to go to school.
yeah, I did go to school. I got
And-
some elementary school.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. And then after your elementary schooling, did you go on to high school?
Yes, I went on to high school. I did part of my high school work in Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
And when I moved to Montgomery, I had just married and I moved there to start school because I had just started preaching.
Mm-hmm.
And
So what school did you attend in Montgomery?
I went to Lowe's Adult School,
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Lowe's Adult School there to do part of my high school work.
Right.
And I went on to Selma University where I finished high school. And I stayed there. There was a time when I had to drop out. I had a break between the time that I began and the time I finished.
Did you leave Crenshaw County to go to Montgomery just to go to school, or were you going there to work?
I left there really primarily to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
I worked part-time.
You worked part-time and
Yes, I
school full-time. You say you were married at the time?
Just married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How old were you when you married?
Well, I was probably in the early 20s.
Mm-hmm. Young man.
Yeah.
Went out of. And what was that transition like from Crenshaw County to Montgomery? From your rural upbringing, moved into the urban area.
Well, I had to adjust to a new pattern of life. It was not, like the rural life.
Right.
I had to get adjusted to a new pattern of life. City life was much different from, rural life.
Mm.
So I had to get adjusted to that.
How was it different?
Well, I liked it. I guess because I got a chance to associate with more cultured people. It kind of moved me up into another bracket, another category of people.
More activity to get involved in.
Sure.
Excuse me. So, did you have relatives in Montgomery
Yeah.
before you arrived there?
Yes, one of my sisters had moved there. Well, two of my sisters had moved there before I went.
And that was your attraction to go to Montgomery?
Well, that was part of it.
Mhm.
But after I began preaching, the real burden of my heart is to go on to school to study for the ministry.
What age did you start preaching?
Well, it was in my early 20s. No. I started preaching, I guess, maybe around about 19, I believe. I'd have to go look at my license. So I've been doing it a little over 40 years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, what was the experience like? How did you get involved in the ministry?
Well, let me tell you, I guess it probably would sound strange, but I was actually flying on eagle one day about 11 o'clock. It was a fair day. And I found myself faced with an experience. Something fell upon me there, and there was a deep voice down in me preaching my heart out. And I looked at my own self in a church preaching my heart out, and I wasn't looking at it with these eyes. It knocked me out. So I turned to news and ran across the field and told everybody in the community that I've been called to preach.
That was your experience to bring you into the ministry.
It went all over that whole county. I was an old box picker singing the blues before that.
Was that right? And how did people respond to what you said you had experienced?
Well, it attracted a whale of a crowd when I preached my trial Sunday. They believed it. They believed it. The people in Crenshaw County remember that. They believed it.
Were there any dollars in the initial stages?
Well, there's a few white folk around there said that just give him a little time and he'd be back out on his feet with that old box on his shoulder.
So you were really converting your life at the time, and you had people that believed in what you were attempting to do, but there were those detractors as well.
Oh, yes. I tell you the truth, I think that I am responsible for the rest of my family getting in the church. Because when that happened to me, and I united the church of a good friend of mine that was pastoring where I preached my trial sermon, and all of my family joined that church.
Was your family a religious family before then? Did your mother and father attend church?
My mother always was a religious woman. She was a church woman. And one of the things that I can appreciate her now, and I'll tell her when I get to heaven how much I appreciate it, she would always tell me the truth, whether it hurt me or not.
So preparing you.
Yeah. Yeah, she would tell me the truth. Now, my daddy was a good man, but he was not as churchy as my mother. But he was a good man.
Did you regularly attend church in Crenshaw County?
Oh, yes, after I started preaching.
What about before you started to preach?
Well, before I started preaching, I didn't go to the church much. We, in those country churches, most of them had one Sunday per month. And once a year, they would have a big revival. We never would hardly miss that revival. My mother and father would always load us up in the wagon and take us to the revival.
Yeah. What was that revival like?
Oh, man. It's almost indescribable. It attracted people by the thousand.
Was it in any particular church in the area, or where was it normally held?
Well, we had several churches in the area because what the custom was that those churches kind of teamed up. Whenever revival was going on at one, perhaps on the first Sunday, most all of the other churches that wanted to have service on that Sunday would would unite and join with that church, help put the revival on.
So, this was a very active period in your life then, when you started to get involved with the church, when you started to minister yourself. And was it very shortly after that you would leave Crenshaw County and go to Montgomery?
Yeah, I left Crenshaw County, in a few years after I started preaching, when I took up residence in the city of Montgomery. Did
you have a church in Crenshaw County before you left, or were you assistant minister?
Well, I was just an associate preacher.
Mm-hmm. And then when you came to Montgomery, which church did you
After I came to Montgomery and got started in school, I had 4 churches. I had a church for every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 5, but one of them I just couldn't serve.
Mm-hmm.
So
you went to a different church every Sunday?
Every Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Were these churches in Montgomery, or were these rural churches?
No, they was out in the country.
Oh, okay.
One of them, I think the furthest one was about 50 miles away.
So, when you first went to Selma University, what was that like?
Well, it was, I guess, the best way I know to put it. It was just like moving into a new pattern of life altogether.
Why is that so?
Well, it was an opportunity to meet with a new group of people. The atmosphere was different, in a different kind of atmosphere. It was a kind of a thrilling experience.
That put you in a different category than you found yourself in Montgomery. I know you said you came from Crenshaw County to Montgomery.
Yeah.
And then that put you into a different category.
Yeah.
Did that move from Montgomery to Selma University have the same impact?
I guess when I went to Selma University and got orientated in there, I kind of took on a little, maybe a higher degree of dignity.
Mm-hmm.
I learned what the schools did for a person,
So did you enjoy that experience?
Oh, yes, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much.
How
It was
long-
a lot of fun.
How long were you there?
Well, in all of my school life, I spent 8 years there.
Mm-hmm.
I had a break between the time that I began and when I finished.
Did you live on campus at the time?
Part-time.
You lived on campus part-time, then you lived off campus.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you have the same churches, the same 4 churches while you were at Selma University that you had when you were in Montgomery?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I changed. I had made one change.
Mm-hmm.
I had made one change. I had one full-time church. It was a small church.
Mm.
And the other 3 churches were part-time churches. But after I left this small full-time church, then I got 2 half-time churches,
Mm-hmm.
which was probably stronger.
In that particular period of your life, what do you remember about the era of depression years? Were you at in school at that time, or were you on your own? Were you still living at home? Or what was going on during the depression years?
I can remember quite well when President Roosevelt died. I was in school. I believe he died somewhere in maybe 40 hours.
45.
Yeah. I was in school. I was really, had a little part-time job there, helping her cleaning up for a white lady,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to make me a little change there, you know, while I was in school.
Mm-hmm.
She was, her husband was president of the First National Bank there himself.
Did you spend any time in the military?
No, I didn't go.
You didn't go to the military. So after you then finished Selma University, what did you do?
Well, when I finished Selma University, got my degree there, and that's when I was called here.
Mm-hmm.
I was called here to Bethel Baptist Church the same year, 1961.
All right. Okay.
But I didn't move here until 62.
Okay, now you said you were at Selma University when President Roosevelt was in 45.
Yeah.
You didn't come to Bethel until 1961.
That's
What
when
happened?
they called me.
Yeah, what happened between the time that when did you finish Selma University?
I finished Selma University in 1961.
In 61. So you didn't go straight through then at Selma.
No, I had some breaks there.
And you were still living at that point in Selma and pastoring.
No, I lived in Montgomery even during my school years at Selma University.
Oh, you did.
I commuted.
Oh, you commuted all that. You never did live on campus.
I lived on campus. What I would do, I'd go over on Mondays,
Uh-huh.
come back on Friday.
Oh, I see. So you then were in Montgomery doing the Montgomery bus program.
Right there in the first meeting when it was organized.
Tell me about that.
Okay. I was in the first meeting there when Ralph Abernathy and Martin Luther King, SSC, those were your leading preachers there. Of course, I'll get to let you on to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I was there when it was organized, and the first meeting was held at Hope Street Baptist Church.
Did you know E.D. Nixon?
Yeah, I knew E.D. Nixon quite well. He had a job on the railroad. I think he was the representative of Pullman's.
Brother of the sleeping car porter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew him.
What was the first meeting like? Was this the first meeting of the Montgomery Improvement Association, or was this the first meeting to organize the bus boycott?
It was really the first meeting after the Montgomery Improvement had gotten organized.
Mm-hmm.
The first meeting was held at Hope Street Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
And it was packed out. It was packed out when Rosie Park refused to get up and give her seat to a white man. It seemed like it touched the nerve vein in the city, so it aroused the whole city.
What was that year like of black folk in Montgomery deciding that they were not going to ride the buses and decided to walk? Can you for someone that was not there and really don't have a feel of what that was like, can you sort of give us some ideas of what that was like?
Yes, it was. That was a kind of a mysterious phenomenon. We used our car, we pooled our car. We had a lot of black people working for white people. And we used our cars to transport people to and from their jobs. So a lot of the bus drivers, there were some of them there who knew me, who was from Crenshaw County. And they saw that they were going to lose their job because people had gotten off of the buses. And I had several calls and wanted to know what did the situation look like. And so we had a paper there that was called Tell It to Grandma.
What was the name of the paper?
It was Montgomery Advertised, but they had a page in that they called Telegram. And the white people, man, they tried to make a big joke out of it. You had some of the worst kind of articles in there talking about the blacks.
What were those articles like?
Well, they were just talking about how ridiculous they looked out there, trying to.
So it was making fun of,
Yeah.
of black folk in this column that's called Tell It to Grandma.
Yeah. So finally, they saw that the bus boycott succeeded. We stayed off the buses until that mandate was handed down. And then after that, a year before that, the city officials, Tackett Gale was the mayor of the city then. And I believe Art Haynes, if my memory serves me. No, not Art Haynes. Art Haynes he was here.
Right.
Tackett Gale and I can't remember now the chief of the police. But anyway, they got the news that some of the people was intimidating some of the riders, and they put the police out tracing the buses. The black folks took it the other way. They thought the police was following the buses to keep them off.
And they were.
So that helped. That helped to keep the road off.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So they actually sent the police to protect the riders
Yeah.
on the bus.
That's right.
And
The people took it the other way.
So that assisted the movement.
Sure. That's right.
Well, how do you compare the mass meetings of Montgomery with the mass meetings in Birmingham?
Well, when I came here in 1962, I moved here. Birmingham really was just beginning to reach its climax.
Right.
So for the mass crowds, I don't see any difference because they packed out every church we had in Birmingham. Every church we had in Birmingham. If you didn't get there around 3 o'clock, you couldn't get a seat.
What was your role in the Montgomery bus boycott? What did you do specifically?
Well, I did a lot of speaking in the mass meeting. And then I supported it. I had a church out in the rural at that time.
Did your church participate?
I had a church that was afraid to participate when I told them that we needed some money to help them out. I had some people that told me that they had to live out there. So they was afraid to participate in it. I just didn't push them a whole lot.
Right.
But I was pastoring a church there in Millbrook. And some people came by there and took a shotgun and then shot in that church. Shot through the door in that church.
Did you know who that was?
I don't know who it was, but I have a strong idea. Like racism at that time, man. I would almost bet you my paycheck that it was some white folks.
Did they come? Is this the church that would not participate?
No, that was not the church that didn't want to participate. This church, they were 100% with me. Of course, the other church was too, but they were just. This church was in Lowndes County that didn't want to participate.
I see. Okay. So the church in Montgomery, you did have a church in Montgomery.
I had a church in Montgomery, but the church that I had, the little church I had in Montgomery, a small church, it was right down from the Capitol, 2 blocks. But I wasn't pastoring that church at that time. I was pastoring the church over in the city called Millbrook, that is just across the river there from them.
Right. Were they active? Was your church active?
Yeah.
The one in Millbrook?
Yeah. That's what they did.
So after the Montgomery bus boycott ended, you remained in Montgomery, right, pastoring the church.
Sure.
What kind of civil rights activity was going on at that time? What kind of civil rights activity were you involved in?
Well, the biggest thing was going on at the end. Well, a lot of the stove that was deeply involved in there, in the discrimination.
Mm.
We boycotted them. That helped some.
Mm.
But I think the civil rights movement, the meeting was held every week, and that helped to keep it alive. So that was about the biggest thing going on. We was talking about the issue, and the tragedy that it had been to blacks. So Ralph Abernathy and Martin Luther King, we both pastored in the same district.
As a result of your activity, were you, while in Montgomery, did you get any threatening phone calls or any type of intimidation?
No more than what was usually, We got all kind of snobby looks, from white people,
Mm-hmm.
So I never got any particular phone call,
What was the circumstances of your moving from Montgomery to Birmingham?
What was my circumstance?
Yeah, what were the circumstances? Why did you decide to make the move to Birmingham?
Well, tell you the truth about it, I hadn't thought about coming to Birmingham. I came up here, and at that time, I was doing lots of revivals all across the state. And I was a young preacher, and I was doing revival. That's where I made most of my living. And I was up here running revival. And there was a man in the church where I was running revival who knew my parents, both on my mother's side and father's side. And he somehow or another took to me, and his wife was a member of Bethel Church. I had just finished school. I had some pictures, like preacher used to do, And at the end of the revival, I put some of the pictures down there on the table. They gave me a nice love offering. He got one of those pictures and give it to his wife, and she carried it over there. And that's what really got them, I think, started seeking me.
Mm-hmm. What was that like, the move from Montgomery to Bethel? This was a larger church. Now Bethel would be a larger church than the church that you had in Middlebrook.
Yeah, Middlebrook.
Mm-hmm.
I had Middlebrook, and I had a church in Wetumpka, which is about 17, 18 miles from it.
Mm-hmm.
Had two churches there. Well, I had another church that had called me in Tuskegee that was waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Bethel.
At the same time that you were called to Bethel,
Yeah.
Birmingham.
Yeah, they called me before I came up. Before Bethel called me.
Mm-hmm.
And it called me after about a month before Bethel called me.
Why did you decide to come to Birmingham?
Well, tell you the truth, when I came here and looked at Bethel, and they had one of the associate preachers there. When I preached that Sunday morning, they was invited out, and he rode out in the car with me and all. So he really prevailed with me to take the church. He prevailed with me. He just begged. I said, well, they haven't called me yet. He said, yeah, but we're going to call you. So we don't want you to touch down. I guess I made a great impression on him. And sure enough, they had another preacher supposed to come the next Sunday. And after that Wednesday night, they called me.
Mm.
And made a long distance call and told me that they had called me.
Mm.
It was about 2 weeks or more, 2 or 3 weeks before I came back up.
Mm.
They wanted me to come back the next Sunday. But I told them I couldn't do that because I had other churches that I had to make arrangements with.
Right.
But I didn't have a whole lot. But after I saw the condition, tell you the truth, I guess at that time I could have got a church most anyway.
Mm.
But I looked at the situation and that fella talked to me and all, and I guess it just kind of laid on my heart. But my wife never did want to come up here.
She did not.
No, she didn't want to come here.
Mm.
When she came up here, when I accepted the church, we came up here one Saturday and spent the night in the parking tent. She looked at the congregation. They had a nice congregation.
Mm.
But I never was a whole lot impressed.
Mm.
But somehow or another, I guess the Lord laid it on my heart to come on and take it anyway.
Mm. Mm. What was it like following the footsteps of Fred Shuttleworth?
Well, I didn't think anything about following him because when I came here, the church was down.
Mm.
You had a lot of folks that disenchanted. You had a lot of them that loved him.
Mm.
In fact, most of them.
Right.
A lot of them loved him. But the church had been going twice
Mm.
before I came.
Right.
And they was kind of disenchanted.
Mm.
So when I came here and accepted the church, and of course the movement was hot.
Right.
A lot of them was involved in it and everything. But a whole lot of the members there and some of the leaders and all of them kind of took me off and talked with me and everything. I prayed about it.
Yeah. What did they tell you?
You know, that was the headquarters for the civil rights movement. Fred did that thing.
That's right.
See, that was the headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
So they felt kind of like it should continue to be the headquarters.
That it should continue to be.
That's the way they kind of felt, you know, that they felt.
They wanted you to be just as active as Fred.
I think that's kind of what, from the way that some of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the leaders, and they took me off, talking to me about it. I told them, I told them I was for the movement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was for the movement. But I played a kind of, I guess I played a kind of quiet role. We supported it.
Mm-hmm.
I preached it.
You still had the mass meetings at the
We
church?
didn't have any mass meetings after that.
Didn't have any?
I believe we had 1 or 2 mass meetings there.
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. We didn't have many.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember quite well, I told him, I said, well, I'm for the movement and everything. I said, but now I'm a preacher. And really, they was kind of down, that church was down.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
People had stopped coming, had really stopped giving money.
Right.
And so I came on there, and after I took up resident there, church needed a less model work on. So after I got in, kind of got orientated into it and everything. I just came in and went to preaching. Went to preaching.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, we kind of got it back pretty well to its normal pattern of life.
Mm-hmm.
And we started taking in members. And finance picked up and all.
Mm-hmm.
It was in debt. Fred had just built that apartment there. They had just built it.
Mm-hmm.
And so after we got it kind of back down to normal, people started coming.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan McCoy kept the record there. I took in over 400 members while I was up there, 13 years.
Well, during that period, you got there at 62. 63 is the height of the movement. In April and May, of course, this is when all the demonstrations were taking place. Were you actively involved with that portion of the movement?
Yeah.
You were a member of the Alabama Christian Movement Youth Alliance?
I remember. See, they bombed that church the last time after I got there. They bombed it on the 14th day of December in 1962.
Okay. In 62, they bombed the church.
Tore it up. Blasted out all of the windows. I had bought a new car and they tore up the back of it. It was parked across the street. That's it. They put that bomb right down in front of the house there. And a lot of the seating and everything in the parking fell out. You know, I guess I'd have been gone if I had been crossing the street coming to the house.
So you actually crossing the street at the time?
No, I was back in the office back
If
there.
you had been crossing the street.
If I had been crossing there, man, I'd have been going with all that stuff flying. They broke out some window pane out of the adjacent house.
What was your role in the with the Alabama Christian Movement?
Well, I was just a member. I was no leader or nothing. I guess.
Did you participate in demonstrations?
Yeah, I participated in some demonstrations they had here. Yeah, some of the marches.
Were you ever arrested?
No, I never was arrested.
Did you participate in the strategy meetings that were going on that other ministers were involved in?
Most of the meetings that I participated in mostly were the weekly meetings.
The mass meetings. Did you speak at any of those?
Yeah, I spoke at some of the meetings.
And what was, if I asked you to describe what a mass meeting was like, how would you describe it?
Well, it was really, it was always highly emotional. It was highly emotional. People was clapping their hands and shouting and going.
During April and May, many people went to jail, especially a lot of children. Did any of your members, were any of your members arrested during this time that you remember?
Yeah, some of them were arrested. They went to jail, I think, during the time Fred was put in jail. Yeah, because he was in jail, I think, when I came here. I had just come here, after I moved here.
Right.
See, they put Fred in jail, I think, before I came here. I believe that right.
Yeah.
But I went over to the jailhouse with some of the members to see him. After I was called.
Did you have children at the time?
No, we didn't. My wife and I didn't have any children. We had a little daughter that we reared. We got her when she was a little bit over 2 years old. And so that was the only child we had.
The night that the bomb, December 14, 1962, tell me what that experience was like.
Well, it's almost indescribable. I guess after it happened, I was tense for a while. I got to thinking about, what a dangerous situation that was. How dangerous it was. My wife could have got killed because it knocked out all them windows in the front of the parsonage.
Right.
She was over there. She just happened to be back in the back of the parsonage. It was, well, it was a horrible experience for me. I had never experienced anything like
What did your wife think about your being
it. Well,
involved?
it shook her nerve up. It shook her nerve up. She really didn't want to come up here.
I mean, after that happened, because you hadn't been here a year, had you?
I had been here, I hadn't been living here yet,
Right.
but I had been called a year. They called me the 1st of November 1961.
Yeah. So what was her response to you when after the bombing?
Well, I had a good wife. She loved me. And she always, would cooperate with me.
Mm-hmm.
But she would always let me know her feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So she just went along with me.
Yeah. Did that bombing frighten you?
Oh man, that was an ordeal for me to go through.
Mm-hmm.
I had to think about it. I said, well, nobody saved me but the Lord. So, nobody but the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Bull Connor came out there with his dogs and his police. He was harassing those people with them dogs and the police, and that was almost that was almost indescribable.
Mm-hmm. Did you march a lot during that period?
You mean during the period?
During the April and May of 1963, during those demonstrations, when Dr. King was here.
Yeah, I marched some. Now I wasn't here. I was not in that group that he took the dogs and things on.
Mm-hmm.
But we came down and marched some up to. We marched up to the county courthouse, and I never forget. One day we was marching, going up I believe that was 17th Street, north of 16th Street. And there was some white kids up in the windows there dropping some stuff down on a bunch of us marching there. When it hit the ground, it exploded like a fly pack.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that were they at the school?
No, they was in some buildings up there.
Oh, okay.
They was in some buildings. Let's see, this is
16th.
16th Street. Well, it was going up this street.
Yeah.
Going up this street.
Up 6th Avenue.
Yeah, going up 6th Avenue. We was walking up the street there, and I never shall forget. There was some people up in the building in them windows over there, and they dropped the cell. I don't know what they were, but when they hit the ground, they exploded.
Trying to frighten you. Did you ever have any encounter with policemen?
Yeah. I had some encounter with, the only encounter I had with police, sometime I'd go down to Montgomery. I remember a time or two coming back, they pulled me over. I wasn't breaking the speed, but they pulled me over. I guess the police was a little bit more, they were a little more aggressive about pulling people over at that time, but I was coming back from Montgomery. They pulled me off 2 or 3 times.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we conclude the conversation? Something that I may not have asked the question. Anything that you would like to just tell people?
Well, I just like to say that I thought maybe after the bombing was all over, they had repaired the church and everything. I thought maybe that would probably probably might be the end of it. But I was harassed with all kinds of telephone calls.